Doctor Sindhura Pisipati is a resident physician at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She completed her Bharatanatyam Arangetram under the guidance of Guru Srimati Sushmita Arunkumar in 2008 and also has completed her Kuchipudi Rangapravesam under the guidance of Dr. Sangeeta Rangala in 2015. She has since been performing both art forms and also continues to learn from various gurus such as Srimati Kalpana Jayanti and Srimati Jayanti Subramanian. Her ultimate goal is to spread the joy of dance to everyone around her.
Thank you so much for being a part of this year's online Mahotsavam. So excited that you're doing this for us again. And tell us about your artistic journey.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for inviting me to do this performance. I was very, very excited to participate in it. If I was to speak about my artistic journey, I would say that it started way back when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I still remember one class in India where I was just sitting and watching the older students doing Kuchipudi steps. And I still remember the third step that they were doing. I just kept watching them in awe. And I was like, I can't wait until I get to learn that step too. And then we moved to this country, and immediately my mom found anybody who could, teach me dance. And so I kind of went between Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam. And then finally in 2003, I believe, I joined with Srimati Sushmita Arunkumar for Bharatanatyam, and I kind of stuck with her and did my art engagement with her. And then after that, I continued, going to classes, performing, and then I realized I also really, really loved Kuchipudi. And so I actually started in 2010 with Dr. Yamini Saripandi in Maryland. And so she introduced me into Kuchipudi, and I continued it on when I moved back to Illinois with Dr. Sangeeta Rangala, and then I did my Rangapravesam with her. And since then, I've just continued dancing and performing and practicing wherever I can.
How did we kind of work between the two styles? Because obviously there's similarities, but they're very distinct. And how do you kind of go through, whether it was the back and forth or now practicing both?
That is a very, very, very interesting question. It was difficult to transition from Bharatanatyam to just full Kuchipudi, mainly because there are similarities, but there are so many differences. Dr. Sangeeta Rangana, or Akka as I call her, she did an incredible job just ironing out exactly what makes Kuchipudi for me. And so I kind of went into this, let me just fully engross myself in that Kuchipudi and see where it takes me. Having done Bharatanatyam for so many years before that, I knew that I wasn't going to lose that form, that straight line form. And so I just focused on Kuchipudi for a very long time before I could say, all right, now I know the differences between the two. And I got to the point where I could, tell people and teach people and say, hey, let's do a Kuchipudi step like this, and that same kind of step in Bharatanatyam would look like this. And let's see how we can play around with those two things. So I think it was trying to just defining the intricacies before moving forward and taking on like items and things like that.
Tell me about the decision to continue with dance. I know you're a medical professional, and that's obviously very demanding, but I think oftentimes, we have folks who start very young and they learn all the way through high school. But then after that, how did you navigate what part dance has in your life?
So You know, growing up with Bharatanatyam, so I did my Arangacham when I was 17, so junior in high school. All through middle school, high school, my teacher would say, you know, the Arangacham is not the end, you know, it's the beginning. And I don't think I truly understood that until I did my Arangacham on a Saturday, and she had a workshop with a, a teacher from India that started on the Sunday. So I immediately went to class on Sunday, and I noticed I already lost some of the stamina that I had on the Saturday, which made absolutely no sense. And then that's when it suddenly clicked. I was like, this is not something that I can just, you know, say I did it and now I'm done and I will be, you know, a master at it for life. No, no, no. There's no such thing as being a master in an art form like this. It's an always practicing struggle and learning struggle. And so from then on, I said, you know, I have to find ways to broaden the art. I have to find ways to continue practicing. And so I hadn't started, you know, medical school, of course, until years after that. But I think the drive of just wanting to continue practicing was kind of what pushed me to keep doing it. And also the fact that dance kind of gives me stability and it's a passion, right? So it's kind of a part of me. I just can't let it go. And so I would notice that if I hadn't practiced for a couple weeks, it would eat me from the inside out. So I said, I just have to practice now. So that's kind of what kept me going.
What advice would you have for students who are learning the arts and you know, if they're middle school, high school, and they're trying to figure out either how to make the arts work for them or whether it makes sense for them to continue?
You know, when you do anything that you're interested in, so whether it be painting, if you're a sports person, if you play soccer, if you dance, if you anything, you play the violin, play any instrument, it's not about trying to succeed and be, you know, the best at something, or just say, oh, I've, you know, completely, I did this and this, and now I'm, you know, I've done all these things, and I'm, you know, I have all these things I can say that I have done. It's not about that. It's about trying to find something that kind of speaks to you, and if dance is something that speaks to you, then never, never let it go, is what I would say. And I say that because not every person who starts dance is wanting to be there, and that is completely fine. You know, sometimes parents are pushing them into it, or friends are pushing them into it, and it's not about finding like, friends that like pushing you into things. It's more about finding what speaks to your soul. So whatever it is, stick with it.
How did you figure out how to balance academics with dance, especially once you started going into college and medical school and things like that?
Again, it was difficult, but in the end, it was something that I just needed to, you know, either de-stress or it was kind of a grounded thing that I could always go back to. And so I would just, you know, maneuver my way, whether it be I had to go to a friend's mother's basement to go practice, or I just, you know, stand around my apartment sitting in utter mind throughout an entire item without moving because I can't disturb my neighbors. But still doing the steps, still moving my arms, still doing the abhinaya so that I can just continue practicing. And so that I had freedom to do that at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And so that was easy to do.
How does your approach, so has your practice been more focused on the act? Because you've mentioned like how it's very grounding. Has it just been like, not just, but has your focus on dance going, beyond high school? Has it been more that personal internal journey, or has it also been like, okay, let me find opportunities to perform and things like that? And how have you kind of navigated what you choose to do with it, and how you, whether it's more, does that make sense what I'm trying to ask? Is it like more like, how do you figure out the kind of role it plays in your life?
So any art form, I would say, is always a personal journey. I would say when I was younger, it was something that my teachers, instilled upon me, and they said, these are the values of the art form, and this is what you need to continue with. Whereas as I'm getting older, I really, really enjoy bringing those values into my own personal growth. And by that, I mean, either choreographing items, interpreting songs in a certain way, that really brings me joy. I love performing items that my teachers have taught me, but I also enjoy doing that new interpretation. It really excites me to do that. And so I would say that, it's kind of a both thing. So it's this personal journey of me trying to find new ways to present the art, but also finding the opportunity so that I can share those new ways with other people. That's why I was so excited that you invited me to do this, just because it's another way to share the art form.
I think that's a perfect segue to tell us about what you're planning for the performance, what you've put together.
So I chose 3 items, 2 Bharatanatyam items and 1 Kuchipudi item. The first one is an alaripu, which is a very traditional piece, but it just has a beautiful melody in the background, and so I wanted to share that with everyone. And then the second item is Samba Sivayanave, but just the Swarajati, and I choreographed that in Kuchipudi. And then the third item is Chinna Chinna Padam in Bharatanatyam, and it's a kirtanam that's explaining or presenting a mother's love for a child, Yashoda and Krishna, no matter what he or she does, and things like
that. How did you choose what items to present for this?
I feel like it was probably a very selfish thing. It's that I have never choreographed a Swarajati in Kuchipudi. I've never choreographed a Kirtanam in Bharatanatyam. That's why I chose those 2 items at least. I always try and find new songs that I've never done before, or the type of songs I've never done before. So again, for that personal growth, so that I can start thinking about songs a different way. And so that's why I chose those items. And then the first item, it's always near to my heart, because that was one of the first things that I learned from Srimati Sushmita and Kumar. So that's fine.
How is it? So I'm always like very drawn to certain items that are very classic, as in the ones that we learn early in the repertoire and we keep going back to. Mm-hmm. How is it revisiting that alaripu now, after versus when you were first doing it, or just the different times of your life when you've done that same item? How has your approach or your understanding shifted with that piece?
So the alaripu is a very nritta piece, and so there's not that much interpretation as far as song in it, or lyrics, but the way I present it has changed so much over the years. As a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, when I was learning this, it was a very staggered approach, and not that much strength involved in it, but as I get older, the piece is very specific on eye movements and where to look, how to turn your head in certain parts. And so I've come to, really focus in on what I'm doing with my face and my hands. They're very specific movements. And so that's something that I've, slowly learned. It wasn't like 1 year I learned it and the next year I got it. No, I'm still changing things. I can look back at this video and say, hey, I did this part wrong. I need to change it the next time I do it. So it's an ever evolving learning thing.
And as far as the pieces that you've choreographed, do you mind kind of talking through your process? How do you decide what song, and then at that point, maybe whether you want to walk through us through generically or for one of these pieces, how do you kind of go through that?
So choreographing is very difficult, I would say, but it depends on the item. So for the Swarajati, it's also mostly just nada, but I try and pick some sort of theme for the song, even if it's just a whole bunch of steps strung together. For this song specifically, I was wanting to, entice whoever my audience is to really enjoy the music. Samba Sivainave is the most beautiful song that you learn very early in your singing career in Carnatic music. And so, and the tune is just so beautiful that I wanted people to hear that and understand that. And so you'll see in part of the steps, I add things like symbols, or I add things like, oh, listen to the music of the song and just sing with it. And so I add those little things within this just pureness of the song to kind of bring people into it and understand it. And then songs like kirtanas or bhajans, things that are very, very story-based, I try to first write out all the lyrics. This song is in Tamil. Tamil is not my native language, and so learning exactly what every single word means is very, very important. Even if it was in Telugu, I would do the same thing. I would look up every single word. And then from there, depending on how many repetitions are already present in the song, how many repetitions of each line I want in the song, I go through what I want to say for each line. So usually if it's one line that's repeated, let's say 6 times, I say, okay, the first line will be me introducing the line to the audience, just saying, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about. And then I go through and listening to if there's any changes in the symbols or the mridangam or anything that, or even the way that the singer, changes his or her gamakas to give a different meaning to the song, I include that into the story that I'm about to tell you. So even in the first line of this song that I choreographed, there's a part where you start hearing the mridangam, and I made that to be the tiny, the translation of the song is small, small steps of Krishna, basically. And so I made the first beats to be him walking across the the stage. And so it's really so much fun to do, and it just all comes together at the end somehow.
That's wonderful. Are there any other projects or things that you're doing right now that you'd like to share?
I would love to do other projects. However, my schedule doesn't really allow for it. So for right now, I'm just practicing. But if there were any opportunities that would come up, I would definitely jump on them super quickly.
Are there any songs or anything that are there any like nascent ideas for choreographies that you've got that you're kind of working through? You don't have to share them.
Yeah, no. Yes, I do have ideas for other choreographies. I I really enjoy choreographing items to represent just pure relationships or, you know, things that are just normal in the world. And so for this item, it was just the relationship between a mother and a child, right? That's, you can't get any purer than that. And so that I really enjoy. And then I do have an idea for, you know, talking about mental health and things like that. And that's a very commonplace thing that no one really represents in dance form, or in other, I mean, you do it in, you know, other artistic forms like painting, um, and music in general. Why not dance? Or in Indian classical dance, you know? I think people are starting to shift into that idea, and I really want to, I have a song for that. And I think it would really, really be good.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm very excited. I didn't realize you were doing your own choreographies for Saturday's performance, so I am very, very excited. And it'll be up 10 a.m. Eastern, and don't miss it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.